It can be a scary thing, first grade, even without the burden of making history. A half-century ago, 13 pioneers accomplished something that had never been done in the city of Memphis. Their story is unique in the fight for desegregation. For unlike most stories which feature grown men and women battling for equality, these pioneers were barely 6 years old. Yet they set a course to freedom that would affect the generations who followed their footsteps. When the Memphis City Schools charter was adopted just after the Civil War, it mandated the segregation of students based on race. This was consistent with Tennessee laws as well as the social customs of the Jim Crow doctrine of separate but equal throughout the South. Segregation, particularly in schooling, was not only about separating the races. In terms of facilities, resources, and outcomes, separate was not equal. In May 1954, the United States Supreme Court declared in Brown v. Board of Education that in the field of public education, separate but equal has no place. The Brown decision threatened to upset the entire social order of the South, although leaders in Memphis greeted the decision nonchalantly. Outside of Memphis, the decision triggered great change both within schools and in society at large. In East Tennessee, the integration of Clinton High School in 1956 led to a violent protest. Across the river nearby Little Rock, the entry of 9 students to Central High School in 1957 led to a showdown between the state of Arkansas and the federal government in Washington. On the momentum of the Brown decision, the civil rights movement marched forward in Montgomery and Greensboro and Nashville. Yet in Memphis, public schools remained completely segregated. Facing such inaction, the local branch of the NAACP took action. The local lawyers filed suit in March 1960. The lawsuit, known as Northcross v. Board of Education of the Memphis City Schools, challenged the district's continued operation of a segregated system.
All we wanted was equity in education. We wanted those kids to get the same facilities, the same teaching as far as quality is concerned. Resources generally have followed white children in public schools.
Having watched their southern neighbors endure the outbreak of violence that was ushered in by desegregation, the NAACP came together with an idea which they hoped would avoid violence completely.
We thought we would do something different, and that is start with first grade. In all the other places, they started with high school. Our contention was that, no, those white high schoolers are already tainted. First graders, no. Let's go with first grade.
Desegregation would occur in 4 elementary schools: Bruce, Gordon, Roselle, and Springdale, taking place during the first week of October. A small group of civil rights leaders led by Maxine and Vasco Smith, Russell Sugarman, and others set out into the neighborhoods of Memphis searching for volunteers for their cause. But their search was more difficult than they had anticipated. Finding black parents of first graders was simple. Convincing them to enroll their child in an all-white school was not.
I can remember it was a weekend. We worked, we knocked on doors, and it wasn't easy, and I can understand it better now than I could in 1961. We were asking parents to send their 5 and 6-year-old children into an environment that I don't know if we would have gone.
I might have been, like a lot of parents, afraid to send my child to school, especially police had to be stationed outside the school and my child gotta be transported to school, you know, that'll make you, probably make you scared and wonder, you know.
It was a man came to our house and he talked to Mama about that. And Mama, she was scared, but she still took that chance and let me go. She was scared.
My father, Ada Willis Jr., was one of the primary lawyers for the NAACP. I think for him, it was a matter of principle. He had to do it. Again, he was one of the lawyers. He had to put his son up. Not that he relished it, but I think he just felt, again, it was a matter of principle. The law of the land had changed. In Memphis, damn it, y'all gonna get on board too. So if I got to use my own son, so be it. He'll be all right. I'll worry about that later on down the line.
One day my dad told me, said, we're gonna send you to the school up the street. I said, no. I said, I wanna go where I've been going. He said, no, we're gonna get you in the Rogers over there. I think that he thought that I would get a better education, that I would become more than what he got out of life. He didn't think he was doing nothing to hurt me. He never would have done that.
Well, I thought it was an honor for him to be chosen to do this, so that's the reason I agreed. And he wasn't afraid to do this. He was told what was going to happen, so he wasn't afraid.
When you have a child, you don't want to see your child going way across town walking when there's a school right around the corner.
All our parents want us to do is go to a school in the neighborhood. We had to go 13 blocks. Gordon was 2 blocks from my house.
In the end, 13, 5, and 6-year-olds were volunteered by their parents to be the first black children in Memphis to attend all-white public schools. For the 13, there wasn't much they could do about it.
There was a meeting the night before integration where the police chief had a meeting of the guys who were going to protect the children. And he said, I'm a segregationist, I always have been one, but I'm a lawman, and I'm sworn to uphold the law. So if any one of you can't go out there in the morning and protect these little Negro children, then you turn your badge in right now. This was the night before. Nobody moved.
On October 3rd, 1961, more than 7 years after Brown versus Board of Education was decided, and after nearly a century of legally mandated segregation in the Memphis city schools, 13 very small African-American pioneers entered 4 formerly all-white schools.
The school was completely surrounded with police.
These police officers were at the extreme borders of the school. They were in groups of 2 that stood around, and if I had to guess, I would say there was 100 to 200. It seemed like in my mind at that time.
I got out of the car with Dewana, and she was like just a kid going to school, first day of school. It went very well. There was no mob.
Yeah, the first day when we got ready to go to school, that morning, we had police escort. We walked to school, and it was kind of exciting, but it was kind of scary. We made it there, and when I got to school, I was nervous about the situation because, that was the first time I had been to a school with just majority of them, white and just a very few black, but it was exciting.
I think it was like the first day of school to anybody. I don't think they were digesting what their first day school was, surrounded by police. They acted like that was the way it should be.
Outside of the schools, there was no chaos. Order had been maintained. The police presence and deliberate efforts to restrict media access seemed to have succeeded in diffusing any potential confrontations. Both President John F. Kennedy and his brother, the Attorney General, congratulated the city on its success. Yet for the black children in the formerly white schools, the school year had just begun.
First day was really nervous, but by the end of the day, it was overwhelming.
Once that door closed and our parents walked out of that school, it was us.
Even as they wondered about their new environment, one of the first things that struck them was the difference between their new schools and their old ones.
The books was crispy new. There was a difference.
Looked like to me when I was at Hyde Park, the books was older books, and it wasn't more advanced. And when I went to Springdale, it looked like everything was more advanced. Stuff that I was doing at Hyde Park, they was way past that when I got to Springdale.
Brand new books, buildings lit up. I mean, I thought I was in heaven. Walked through, I'm looking like a little child in a department store at Christmas time, looking around, because I had never seen anything like that.
And I did see the difference between Gordon and Klondike. Gordon was much nicer and a whole lot cleaner and nicer. You could really tell the difference between the two schools. Gordon, they served the kids ice cream and all that kind of stuff. Ice cream at Gordon wasn't different from ice cream at Klondike. Klondike didn't have ice cream. Right there made me glad I was at Gordon right there, just the ice cream.
However much the children might be enjoying their new surroundings, there were constant reminders that their very presence was a threat to the existing social structure. The experience for them was anything but easy.
Going to Bruce, it just was, such a stark contrast. It's like being on the defensive, being at war emotionally for quite a few years, quite frankly. But that first year was just hard. And it wasn't physical as much as it was just psychological. I mean, yeah, we got pushed a little bit. I didn't get spit on a whole lot, but it was just a kind of psychological, I'm your friend today and tomorrow, I'm not your friend. Going outside, everybody wants to get a shot at you. You can't even pee in peace because somebody is messing with you.
My perspective, when I look at the pictures, it was fairly normal because I was one of many students in a room or in a school where everyone sort of looked like me. Now, if you take it from their perspective, they were in a school where the majority of folks didn't look like them. That probably is very intimidating.
I internalized a lot. I know I cried a lot. It was just hard. I learned to hate school. It was just hard. I used to hate going to school.
The derogatory statements, you got more of it. You got teased more, and all that kind of stuff.
98% of the kids were good to me. They were good kids. The other 2%, like I say, at the time I didn't know it had to deal with racism. I'm just thinking they were just bad kids.
It wasn't nothing like when I went to Hamilton, You didn't feel free. I felt free in Hamilton. You was confined over there,
It was rough. I was trying to, make my family proud, but I was constantly looking over my shoulder because I was scared. Be honest with you, I was scared. And it was days I didn't want to go, but then, my mom was backbone. You had to go. You need education. So that's what one of the things she inspired us, you go get your education. You can be anything you want to be. So that's what I did.
I can remember on one of those days that you were asked, so what do you want to be when you grow up? I knew what was acceptable to say I wanted to be, and knew what I wanted to be would not be acceptable to say because I would be discouraged. And at that time, it was in the entertainment business. you know. And, you know, and it probably would have come out a movie star or something like that, because I remember I was in elementary school, and I can remember clear as day and saying, I will not say that and have them rip my dream apart. So I said a nurse, because I knew that was something they could probably. But it's very difficult, you know, being in a situation where you just never get to see images of yourself in a positive light.
It was kind of bad. It was kind of bad. But like anything else, after time it got better and better. But at first it was like you would wake up in the morning and you would dread going to school, and you're alone. You're kind of always alone.
I wasn't wanted there, and I couldn't really say I had any friends there, because, you know, if you met somebody, you can relate to them. You had other kids get with them and say, no, you're doing the wrong thing, you don't need to be over there with him. So I was sort of like a loner.
We were just first graders, so it looked like everybody else was like giants over us. And when you got these big people calling you names and taunting you and so forth and so on, you know, you just kind of get the feeling, we're all the grown people, you know, can anybody stop this, you know?
I wouldn't want to go to start with. No. They could have ice cream for starting when you go in there, and ice cream for lunch, and ice cream in the middle of the day. I wouldn't want to go to Roselle.
The pushback was not limited to the children. The parents, too, felt the weight of the change their children were pushing.
Lots of more people in Memphis, they didn't have no return address on the mail, but we got stuff in the mail, you know. Like hate mail, you know, like, yeah, your black child is going to school. When she go, she's still gonna be black, and all that stuff like that, you know.
How'd that make you feel?
More determined.
I worked at Holiday Inn on our Union, and I worked at the Claridge Hotel. And I worked at this lady, I can't think of her name. She lived in North Memphis. My sister worked for her. And it was on the news. Our name and the kid's name that had registered at the white school. So I was gonna work for this lady the next day in my sister's face. She called me. She said, "Was that your little boy that's registered going to school?" I said, "Yes." "Well, I don't need you tomorrow here. I don't need you no more work for me. Because, you know, you register your child at this school." "No." "Thank you, okay."
Despite the difficulty and the extraordinary nature of what the students were a part of, they were, of course, just children. Their teachers, in many ways, set the tone for the classroom on how the African American students should be treated.
To me, I had a job, and I looked at it. This is no difference to me, whether they're white, black, or what. I taught with my whole heart.
And my first grade teacher, she was so nice that you didn't feel threatened. I didn't feel scared or threatened or anything because she was so nice, you know, and made you feel, you know, like you didn't have nothing to worry about. You know, and that's something I just wish I could have met again after I had gotten grown, or after I had gotten old enough to realize the purpose and the reason behind all this. And she was somebody I just wish I had the chance to just talk to her and thank, you know, for the way she treated me. Because Because to be honest, I owe a lot of the way I felt and was treated. To me, it seemed like I owe a lot of that to her. And because she was a really extraordinary person. She was almost like an angel. She was.
If I had anything that was bothering me, I can go talk to even that sister principal back then. I could talk to her, and I would sit in the office until I felt comfortable to go back to class. They actually would talk to you. You know, you have a bad day, you know, they can reassure you that you're gonna be all right.
Some students were blessed with a caring teacher. Others were not.
My first grade teacher, I thought she was the devil on earth, rest her soul. I mean, she was just mean, wicked, evil, I felt. The other person said, well, Fonby, how you know she wasn't mean to everybody? And I said, well, I can only go by what I feel or what I felt at the time. And I had a sense, I mean, it's one little black child, and everybody else sitting out because order, I'm the first one in the row, and I know when somebody don't like me. She didn't treat me like she treated a lot of other people. Yes, she may have been mean to Stanley or Tom, but it was a different kind of meanness. And I know this lady didn't like me, and Lord knows I didn't like her.
Some teachers could make you feel, you know, just the way they would, you know, if you know, you knew the answer to a question and they just weren't gonna call on you to answer the question, you know. And little snide things that they would say. It's all in the tone and everything.
I used to hold my hand up, you know, like all day to ask a question and they wouldn't let me answer it. You know, like if she asked a question and I knew the answer, at first she called on me, but then she stopped calling on me and I'd just be holding my hand up the whole day.
Although the students faced prejudice, they also found friendships.
We were friends, and he was just a quiet, kind, gentle young man. Didn't know any different. I mean, it was just like regular kids.
We were friends. You know, it wasn't any, you didn't have to guess. You know, by then, 4th, 5th grade, we just got along as little boys.
If you were gonna play baseball, you went to find some kids to play baseball. They were the kids you were playing baseball with. They weren't the black kids you played baseball with. They were the second baseman, the left fielder, the pitcher. You had to have 9 to be able to play. You didn't care who they were.
We used to play softball, and we had one glove. And you'd take a turn using the glove when it's your turn out in the field. I always remember this particular time it came my turn to have the glove. And I remember the ball being pitched, and when the student hit it, I remember throwing my hand up in the air, and some kind of way the ball landed in the glove. And from that point on, the kids always gave me the glove to wear. But I never caught another ball.
I was kind of nervous and scared when I first, you know, go to somewhere, anywhere you go that's new and you're not familiarized with the people or the surroundings. But I had 2 little girls, don't ask me names, I can't remember, but they really made me very welcome. Even being little, you know, they laughed and talked and, you know, it was just enjoyable. I never had a bad experience while I was at Springdale.
I knew she was the type of person that she loved people. She had lots of friends. That's why I said she didn't have any problem, because she was an easygoing person. These 2 children, Helen and Chris, they were 2 white kids. And I started hanging out with them, and they would take me a week. I could go over their house. Their mother started liking me, and we had a good relationship, and that's why I ended up not being no kind of prejudice in me, because Helen and her brother. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed being with them. That was the best part of going to that school.
For some, the burden was too much to bear. Before the year was out, feeling unwanted and unsafe, several left to return to all black schools.
I never finished the whole year out. I didn't. I mean, I wasn't happy going there. I felt the tension. I wasn't happy going there. I was ready to go, man. I mean, it's like, you got a pork chop in the lounge then, I want out.
It got overwhelming to me, so I begged my mom. I said, Mom, look, I can't do this no more. It's too much for me, you know. So this a 5-6-year-old kid talking. I mean, that's just the way I felt. So she eventually took me out because they felt better because of the things that were happening, and they were afraid that something was gonna happen. If I was scared, they were scared. So they finally took me out.
When we first went, you know, it was all white and it was just 4 African American students. Then the next school term, after everybody, you know, parents in the neighborhood started saying, okay, everything went fine for them. Then, you know, they were asking our mom, well, okay, how can I get my, you know, child into the school now? So more African American students started coming in. And like I said, then the whites started moving out. So about time, I think by the time we got to the 5th or 6th grade, it was majority an African American school. It was, I would say the ratio was 7, maybe 80-20.
A half-century after the Memphis 13 entered 4 all-white elementary schools, the Memphis City schools look very different than they did in 1961. The vast majority of students are African American, and most schools are made up primarily of black students. But the lessons of 1961 continue to resonate. For the children and their families, it was more than a singular moment of profound change. It was an experience that would shape their entire lives.
If I have any regrets, and it's all worked out well in the whole movement, I don't think 6-year-olds should have been sent to do what adults should have been doing, but they were more resilient.
Within the last 7 or 8 years, I was like, at one point I was like, I don't know, I kind of thought you and Mom might have been mad at me for sending me to that school. It's like, did I do something wrong? Why did I have to go to that school?
I think in my later years I did feel guilty to put 5-year-olds through that, but had to be done, so we did it. It was the right thing to do. It really was.
Memphis is unique. In fact, we were babies. I don't know if the court did it on purpose or they thought they could actually deter integration. Okay, in other words, we're gonna start with the babies. We know y'all ain't gonna send your babies out. And I wonder sometimes what would have happened had they done it the other way. I don't know how, I mean, that could have been disastrous. I mean, I don't know if there's any perfect time to go through fire. You know, if you wearing a suit made of gasoline.
Be the first somebody to start something. You the first, it's like being on the front line in Vietnam. You're gonna be the first one to get hit. You know what I mean? You know, and then be a 6-year-old to get hit. Oh, it really hurts. You know, it hurts to get a shot at 6. It hurts when you get hit like that, you know. And a lot of things you get hit by, you can't really say what's on your mind. But the feeling lingers, you know. A lot of things I wanted to say out of my mouth, I couldn't say. A lot of things I wanted to do, I wasn't big enough to do them. The knowledge I gained from that school is I knew where my place was in life. I knew where to get off at and where to step on at. I knew that I was not equal. I felt that when I was a kid. That's the knowledge I gained.
I'm glad my mom chose for us to go to Gordon. I'm glad that she did that. In fact, I'm glad that all 13 of us parents, they stood up for that. Because why should our kids not have the same?
I can look back from now to where it was then. I can do anything I want to do. You can't tell me, anybody else can't tell me what I can't do. Just like when I went in the United States Navy. I was a machines repairman. I got to my command on the ship. I was the only black as a machinist. You know, I said, well, I learned when I was a kid, you know, how to just block out those negative obstacles and just work on the positive side. And like I said, bettered me while I was in the military.
It was fun in a way, and then it was hurtful in a way. But I'm just glad I was able to do something to help my race and my people out. I'm glad. I was very proud of that.
Boy, look at me. Look where I've come from. You know, how far we've come. You know. Let's look back. I'm just proud that, you know, one of my kids participated in such.
What these kids did 50 years ago, what their mothers did, and whatever the city did to make it work, is a great gift to our community.
The desegregation of the Memphis city schools in October 1961 was a turning point in a city's history. Yet even today, this community, like many others, continues to struggle with the difficulties of prejudice. As the pursuit of a more perfect union continues, the courage of the Memphis 13 to bear this burden for a community is to be honored.
And it just made you think that, you know, why wasn't it like this all the time? You know, why did it have to be a black school and a white school and this and that, you know? It just seemed like it should have been like this all the time. And it shouldn't have had to take a lawsuit to make something like this happen. And like I said, I was glad I was one of the first 13. Or like I said, it did, to me, it did make you grow up to be a better person.
"13 young children blazed a trail of courage for their generation. It is up on their small shoulders that progress was built."